the Santa Barbara Unified School District's Board of Education meeting for March the 8th. Dr. Cash, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Buenas noches. Para miembros del público tenemos los aparatos disponibles para escuchar interpretación en español simultánea si así lo desean. Muchas gracias.
Also, headsets for the hearing impaired are available. Please indicate if you need one. Dr. Cash, introductions, proclamations, presentations, or recognitions.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We do have a student report coming from La Cuesta Alta Vista. Natalie Aguirre and Catherine James are here. You guys are up. Please come forward to the podium.
Hi, I'm Catherine James. I've attended La Cuesta since fall of 2014, and this is the Dos Pueblos High School reports. March is National Nutrition Month, and we will kick off the celebration with Dos Pueblos High School Wellness Day this Thursday in the Dos Pueblos A-Quad, sharing healthy food and personal care booths for the community at lunch. Welcome to all students and staff. Mobile Cafe is officially back and active at lunch. Sadie Hawkins / Hicktown Dance, Friday, March 18th at the Charger Cafe. All students welcome. Outside guests welcome with approved forms, 9 to 11 p.m. Gender Equality Month, March 21st, is the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. We will be posting information and facts all that week to enlighten our students about the issues. Spring sports in full swing, including lacrosse and girls sand volleyball, are as our newest sports entering into the CIF World in Channel League.
Hi, so my name is Natalie Aguirre. I've been going to La Cuesta since this last September, and this is for La Cuesta and Alta Vista. La Cuesta students studying tolerance in Miss Moret, Mr. Bedard, and Miss Ortega's English classrooms will travel to the Museum of Tolerance in LA on March 16th. La Cuesta leadership students are planning the second annual Alternative High Prom, but we need a venue that has a low rental rate. Please help by emailing kortega@svunified.org. Alta Vista students are working on a surveillance and civil liberties project. La Cuesta's social justice elective is planning Ally Week, a week to teach peers about different forms of oppression and how they can be better allies to all. This will take place from March 14th to March 25th.
These are the reports for Santa Barbara High School. Santa Barbara High School ASB is hosting a talent show March 17th. Don's Net Cafe is traveling to Virginia March 18th for a competition. Cheer is hosting a showcase March 13th.
San Marcos High School. Central Coast College Fair for juniors is taking place this Thursday, March 10th. ASB elections for 2016 to 2017 school year take place on March 17th and 18th. Hosting Living Voices Native Visions on Monday, March 21st, also sponsored by our local Beyond Tolerance program organization.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great job. As board members are aware, each year we have between 15 and 20,000 high school students from across the country that get identified as National Merit Program semifinalists, and from that pool of highly qualified candidates, finalists are selected, and they receive a Certificate of Merit and a National Merit Scholarship from the National Merit Scholarship Corporation. We have several of our students that are with us here this evening. I asked Dr. Dradi to come forward with the certificates. And as I call each student's name, if you could come forward, please, and shake Dr. Dradi's hand and receive your certificate. And then I'd ask the students to stay up here so we could get a good look at all of them. And then I'm going to give you a warning up front, students. I'm going to ask you to come up to the mic and tell us where you're going to go to college, because that's always a good story, or at least where you're thinking about going. And I think everyone knows what I'm secretly hoping for, where some of you may be going. So we'll start with Maxwell Anhalt from Dos Pueblos High School. Sienna Applebaum from Dos Pueblos High School. Anna Brewer from Santa Barbara High School. Sarah Douglas from San Marcos High School. And Megan McQueen from San Marcos High School. Congratulations to all of you, and we'll start with you, Maxwell. Why don't you, if you could go up to the podium and let us know what your college plans are.
I'm going to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo for electrical engineering.
All right, Sienna.
I'm deciding between USC and UC Berkeley for
Go Bears!
Go Trojans, fight on.
for mechanical engineering.
All right. Anna Brewer.
I haven't decided yet, but I'm considering UC Berkeley for computer science.
Sarah Douglas.
I'm currently undecided, but I'm majoring in mechanical engineering.
All right. And Megan McQueen.
I'm currently looking at Yale and UC Berkeley, and I'm going to major in either computer science or comparative literature.
All right. Students, as you've returned to your seat, I know that you have no doubt that the strongest supporters, perhaps, since the beginning of your lives have been your parents. And we'd really like to recognize the parents that are here this evening that have provided that support, and anyone else that came to share in this celebration of these students' outstanding academic achievement. So we'd ask the parents to stand so we could recognize them as well. Congratulations. A couple of other announcements to make.
Dr. Cash?
Yes, sir.
I see some grandparents here, too. Let's recognize
Oh, I'm
grandparents.
sorry. Grandparents, too. Yes. Oops, I'm sorry, Mr. Heron. So Saturday was a very special day for if you were a Santa Barbara High School Don. They had two of their athletic teams participating in a CIF championship game. Boys basketball, which was successful at the Honda Center down in Orange County, and boys soccer, which played a valiant match but succumbed and ended up in second place. So I wanted to recognize Santa Barbara High School, incredible accomplishments in their winter sports. March 14th, oh, there's Mr. Vecchio. March 14th is one of my favorite days of the year, and I'm not a mathematician, but it's Pi Day. And it's a great day. All of our schools have lots of activities that occur, and I always remember as a principal I loved it because I always got to eat some pie. I'm certain there's going to be pie eaten throughout our district at many of our schools, and I know our library public library is also part of that celebration. I want to announce that La Colina Junior High School is going to have Hello My Baby, a new fashion musical comedy, which will be on March 17th, 18th, and 19th at 7 p.m., plus a March 19th Saturday matinee. And at the last board meeting, I told you about a visit by noted author Victor Villaseñor. There was a scheduling conflict, unfortunately, and we'll be providing you with an update as soon as it's finalized and we know that he'll be here. And that concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Board, any comments, correspondence? Mr. Herron.
I'll comment on a couple things. Once again, the ICANN art shows have started at our schools, and the first one I went to was at the Community Academy, their core vision and their ICANN. And I made the comment there, and I'll make it here, and I made it last night. it's professional. I mean, these kids do artwork that you could put in any gallery on State Street, and people wouldn't know they would buy 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. I mean, it is that good. And anybody who, as we go through the rest of the schools with their ICANN programs, make sure you take advantage of looking at it. Wellness Day, I went to Adams School and proceeded to have green smoothies. And it was actually, they kept track. They kept all the plastic glasses and stacked them up, like and don't like. And fortunately, the likes was huge, and the don't likes was very small. So they were good green smoothies with cucumbers and spinach and kale and all that good stuff. Adelante had their board meeting last night, and they're going to have 190 in attendance next year, which is their max. Pardon? 290 next year, which is their max, and they're very happy about 2 new portables going in, hopefully this summer. As you know, on our agenda tonight, we have a new agreement with ICANN, and that was presented to them last night also, and it does hit their budget, and so they are worried about that. I went to the movie this weekend, West to the West, by on the Channel Islands, and a big thank you to Montecito Bank and Trust, who paid for all the educators to be there on Sunday afternoon. And the room was packed, and it was really, really educational, and I think it will be used in our school system to quite a great degree in the coming years. And then I also attended the lottery here in this room for La Colina Junior High School, and I'd like to thank Ms. Wagonek. Very professional, keeping the focus on the lottery, doing the lottery in a very systematic way, and you know, there probably were some people who weren't very happy at the end, but the audience on a whole, I mean, it was a very professional audience. I mean, I really applaud the people in the room and how everybody reacted, you know, very, very nicely. So thank you, Fran.
With that, we move on to announcement of closed session action. Did you have a comment? No? The board had one action to report. The Board of Education voted in closed session to approve the release of 6 probationary teachers. The names will be on the next board list after the teachers are notified. With
Sorry,
that,
Dr. Pazin, was that on item B4? Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
that's correct. Moving on to item number 9, public comments on non-agenda matters within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education.
Yes, we have 6 speaker slips, and I'll read 3 names first, come up in order, and they'll be given 3 minutes apiece. First, Dr. Jennifer Freed, followed by Anthony Leroy, followed by Talia Sanchez, and these are in reference to the superintendent search.
Thank you for the time tonight. I'm the co-executive director of AHA, and we just wanted to make a comment about the search for the irreplaceable Dr. Dave Cash. We feel very strongly, having been working in this district, I have been for 40 years, that this is the most important transition ever, because in my experience, what Dr. Dave Cash has been able to do in these years in creating restorative approaches is essential. And we're just getting started. All the evidence is out now that if we actually teach our young people social emotional learning, how to repair things instead of just punish each other or feel punished, we have much more school success and much more cohesion among students and teachers. So we're just urging you in your search, because we know you're doing it and you're doing a great job, to really consider that we need a leader that has a similar vision that can carry out the beginning of this great work that you've all been in support of. And we need it now more than ever, because as you see in the national stage, civilities are really being questioned. And so we need to really make sure that our young people grow up with very strong compasses about how to behave with one another and how to act with adults. And so we're urging you to really make this search count in terms of this next stage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Paz, as long as you're there, I'd like to, at the last meeting, I used your name. I read about you in the New York Times when I was back east.
Thank you,
Congratulations.
yes.
That was a very nice article.
Thank you very much. And it is in part of the work we've been able to do because of Dr. Cash and his vision that we did get recognized in the New York Times, so thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anthony Leon. I would like to thank everyone that's here and Mr. Cash. I'm here to talk about restorative approaches and how they've helped me in my school experiences and how they've helped my peers around me in my school. It allowed better connections with students and teachers because instead of having an issue with the teacher and the teacher just sending students outside, it allows a connection being built between the student and teacher, which allows a lot more learning to get done. It is essential that teachers and students have great connections between each other because it allows a better working environment between everyone and allows smoother conditions. AHA and Peace Builders have helped me through so much and allowed me to feel comfortable and give me the confidence to come up here and speak with everyone and just make me a better person. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Talia Sanchez. I am here also to talk on behalf of Peace Builders and AHA. I have been a member of Peace Builders for the past 3 years at my school, and I would have done it freshman year, but it was not yet implemented into the school. I also want to thank Dr. Cash because he provided me with the opportunity to go down to San Diego to speak on behalf of Peace Builders at the Santa Barbara, or the California State District School Board meeting conference, and that was an amazing opportunity because when we spoke, we really received positive feedback, and we had superintendents attending, we had teachers, we had school board members, and also just other students that were there for leadership programs, and we received such positive feedback from not only the superintendents but also the students, which is really nice to see because it's nice to see that other students want to make their school a better place as well. So we really appreciated having all of that support, and we really think that it's important and essential for our schools to have Peace Builders continue to be a part of the Santa Barbara school districts and all of the schools. We really think that it's important to have a positive relationship between students and teachers so that the maximum achievement, both academically and just everybody just wants to have the healthy relationship between the teachers and the students, and Peace Builders is a really good program that really likes to support that. So we think that it's really important to have that continue. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have 3 speakers on the topic of the outdoor school. First, Jay Bishop, followed by Sarah Pervisia.
Perverziev.
Okay, and followed by Thomas Raparte Brown. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jay Bishop, and I am the Education Director for the Outdoor School at Rancho Alegre. And I'm here for a 3rd time to try to convince the Santa Barbara District to bring all of the Santa Barbara schools back to our site at Rancho Alegre. For those people who are unaware, we've had a relationship with the Santa Barbara schools for over 50 years. There's probably people in this room that came to the school as a student when they were a child. And so we're working forward to make that happen again for the Santa Barbara District. We had some issues and some concerns come up that we addressed with Dr. Ramirez, and are still working forward to finalize them coming back for the 16-17 season. And I urge that anybody that has input and knows about our program firsthand, that you make sure that that information gets to Dr. Ramirez. Because we're still waiting for someone to come up and visit who's actually a part of the decision making. So if someone can't come up and see directly firsthand, then I think that they should take the suggestions of the teachers and the principals who have been up there and seen the program firsthand. Anything that comes up from this point on that would be a hindrance or a concern, I can assure you that we will work to fix that concern and address that concern. We have also come up with a topic of cabin leaders and the cabin leader volunteers, which is, I think, one of the reasons why we really need someone to come up and see the program running, because our program safety is focused mostly on our naturalist staff, which is all trained in CPR and first aid and sometimes higher levels than that. And they all live on site within the main campus area where all the cabins are located. And I think that maybe that's kind of lost in translation if you've never been up there and seen the program running. So we are addressing things like background checks for volunteers and higher training levels, which we agree with. We also have gone as far as to unprecedentedly put money towards background checks, which we've never ever done before. It wasn't an original concern that arose, these cabin leader issues, but again, we're responding to them as they arise. And in this particular case, giving about what it would cost about a third the volunteers to come up and be background checked is a good step forward on our part to say that we're serious and we want you guys to come back and be a part of our community again.
30 seconds.
Thank you. Again, I urge anybody who's a part of this decision to come up and see our program, our excellent program, in action, and that make your decision based on actually seeing it firsthand. And then again, if not, then go to the people that actually have participated in the program and get information from them. And now I'm going to invite Sarah Paraveziev to come up and to speak a little bit about the training of the cabin leaders.
Hello, my name is Sarah Paraveziev. I've been working at the outdoor school for 5 years. This is my 5th season, I can't believe it. And I train our cabin leaders. So when the cabin leaders get to our site, I thought it would be helpful if I came and explained what I do. I have them the entire first day, and that whole day we go over training and leadership skills. So if I receive a group of cabin leaders, the first thing I let them know is that they're not alone. I live a couple hundred feet from the cabin, and they have my phone number as well as the phone number of the teachers, their health lodge number. In the event of an emergency, I very literally could run to them. So that's the first step, is that I make sure they're not alone. And then we go over leadership skills. This is super important, as you all know, because being a leader doesn't come naturally to many people. Most people have to work at it. And I went through the outdoor school as a student and as a cabin leader. And so I have firsthand knowledge on how this leadership opportunity can help change you as a person. If I did not go through the cabin leader training program, speaking even in front of all of you would be extremely nerve-wracking. But here I am. So they help bond with the students because the students see them. They see them come from Santa Barbara. And they say, wow, these are real people here, and they're bought into our program. They're bought into the science. These cabin leaders are sitting in the dirt. Maybe we should sit in the dirt. These cabin leaders are showing us maybe how we should act out here in nature, and it's wonderful. So not only are they not allowed alone in their job, and I train them most of the day, but they have access to people that have adequate training. I train them, like I said, for multiple hours, but then if they do need help, they have access to me and the teachers. So if you have more questions about the cabin leaders and their training, I would be happy to talk with you because I feel great that we have a good program going on. But I urge you all to come up soon and visit our program. I love it. I'm fully invested in it, and I hope that we can get the Santa Barbara School students back. Thank you so much. And here's Tommy.
I don't have to mess up Paraveziev because I just call her Peregrine. We have nature names. Mine's Orca. Have you guys been up to the, yeah, right on. I'm a local Santa Barbarian, and 2.5 years at the outdoor school as a naturalist. So I teach things like ecology, I teach astronomy, I teach geology, and other natural sciences. But what I really do is I get kids, students, 6th graders, out into nature with me, out into the woods. They leave their phones, their technology, they leave all that stuff behind for 4 days. Think of how big of a deal that is. No hair gel. I play guitar at the campfire, and they sing, and I see these kids kind of get silly, allow themselves to be silly, which these are 12 and 13-year-old kids. It means a lot. Earlier today, I was stalking a red-tailed hawk with 13 kids from Orchid, and we just had a really amazing learning experience, and we talked about birds and their primary feathers and all this kind of fun stuff. And for the Santa Barbara schools, that might be their first time out in the backcountry of Santa Barbara over the 154. And my job is to try to connect them to this place, to their home. And I just can't stress how valuable that is for them. So I just really hope that we get those kids back up to our site, try to get the Santa Barbara Unified Schools back, because we love them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Cash, could we get something in the superintendent's report, either in the coming weeks about this? Just what's the update?
Well, I can just tell you right now that I think all of their dreams will come true.
Thank you. Thank you.
March 25th, then, is the deadline. You'd be so happy.
So, as you know, it's part of the LCAP, so.
And we're all going to Disneyland after this.
It won't be as good.
With that, I think we are moving to item D, acceptance of donations for March 8th, 2016.
I move that we accept donations with gratitude, please.
Second?
Motion by Ms. Idelson, second by Ms. Parker. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We move on to the consent agenda. Members, do you have anything you would like to pull? If not, can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Parker, seconded by Mr. Herron. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We move on to item F, public hearing. We have no public hearing this evening, so we will move to the action agenda.
Mr. President, may we please move item 4 to item 1 so Ms. Chate can get to bed. I appreciate her being here tonight. She's definitely under the weather, so.
Yes, we may.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try not to get the podium all contaminated.
Mr. Rick can move away.
They've been doing that all day. So welcome. Thanks for having me early. Santa Barbara Unified School District staff has prepared the second interim 2015-16 for board review and positive certification. The 2015-16 second interim projects a fund balance in the general fund that exceeds the state's minimum recommended reserve requirement of 3% for the current and 2 subsequent years. When this document was created, the district was in impasse with the SBTA. That is no longer the case, and Santa Barbara SBTA and Santa Barbara Unified has come to an agreement, and the union will take the proposal, I believe it's March 11th through the 17th. Items to consider for regarding demands on our future revenues. Of course, the negotiations for the certificated and classified and management staff. In 2016-17, the increase of the quarterly sales or the quarter sales tax expires, along with the parcel tax A and B, and regional occupational program from the county ends also in that 16-17. In 2018-19, Proposition 30 goes away. However, there is a strong potential that on the November ballot, Proposition 30 will be extended. So we're all rooting for that. The June ballot for the bond facility bond initiative is not going to make the June ballot. However, it will be on the November ballot. And of course, the CalSTRS and CalPERS retirement system increases over the next 6 or 7 years. The The loss of the state revenues that expired for the personal income tax and the sales tax will slow the economy recovery a little bit, but as I said, we're hoping that the Prop 30 is reinstated and extended. We went to the governor's workshop in January. There's not really a lot to talk about in that, and there's nothing earth-shaking, but we do have May Revise on the 20th of May, and so we're looking forward to seeing what's in that. So I'm going on to unrestricted revenues. So on our local control funding formula, the 15-16 second interim, the difference between the first and the second interim is about $64,000, and this is due to the increase in the gap funding went from 52% to 51.97%. We also got an addition of $168,000 in federal revenues, which is the MA money. We finally got 1112. So
I get the joke.
they run a little slow. The local revenue increase is due to $250,000 in one-time E-rate money and reimbursement for the Student Opportunity and Access Program, which is the CalSOAP, and Beginning Teachers Association Support and Assessment, the BITSA program. The expenditures have increased slightly due to staff on leave of absence, a .2 full-time equivalent in math support, and 1 FTE returning from family medical leave, and then we had a long-term sub. Our books and supplies increased due to the purchases of fans and curtains for Cleveland, Bunsen Burnis, computers for Dos Pueblos Engineering Academy, and tools for new electrician. Service and operations, we had a net decrease of $1.3 million. This is due to the following reductions. Deferred maintenance, we reduced by $1.2 million that we were going to use in the one-time mandated money, and also the eliminated the $500,000 in the funding that we were going to do for the irrevocable trust. And these funds were decided they were needed for instructional materials for technology. Capital outlay, the slight increase for capital outlay is due to the purchase of the van and a facilities use truck. Our contributions on page 5 have gone up a little bit, and this is due to the special education local plan funding, the SELPA. Our federal money went down because of basically the decrease in our our enrollment has decreased. So that we're funded on our total ADA of the whole district, so when our district goes down and other districts go up, the money goes to the person the district that has the most enrollment. Changes in the unrestricted fund balance. The district is projecting a surplus in the ending fund balance of $12 million. This is due to one-time mandated funds. The district has developed a plan to spend down $5.6 million over the next 4 years for instructional materials, technology, professional learning. The expenses are accounted for in the multi-year projections in 16-17 and 17-18. However, $2.4 million will be reflecting in the 2017-18 fund balance because the multi-year projections don't go out on this form out any further than that. Our restricted activity, again, in the federal revenue went down by $741,000. That's what I was just talking about with the SELPA funding and the decrease in enrollment. The other state revenue is increase in mental health funding from the same area, SELPA, and also the disbursement of the final CUIA funds. Our local revenue, staff has finally gotten all the promissory notes from the sites, so that is all in along with the relating expenditures. These are from our PTOs, PTAs. Excuse me. So the expenditures on the restricted side basically reflect the increase or decreases to the funding, the restricted funding. So our fund balance, the restricted fund balance has decreased due to the decrease in revenue, However, the special ed expenditures have remained the same. Of the remaining 2.2 million, 1.1 million is of the Educator Effective Grant, which is also one-time funds, which have to be completely spent by the end of 17-18. So you can see a slight decrease in our ending fund balance, and this is due to the loss of our parcel tax A and B funding, so that will drop our ending fund balance. We're on components. 10? So on our ending components of ending fund balance, we have for 15-16 restricted or assigned $5.6 million in the one-time mandated block grant, which is the Ed Service has made a plan for that for instructional materials and technology. We also have still committed in 15-16 for the fields and the cars, carts and trucks in that for the Fund 17. Sorry. There, in 16, 17, and 17, 18, no funds in Fund 17 have been assigned. So we're on 13 now. This is our latest enrollment projections for the outcoming years. I wouldn't, we had a loss last year, and so we are expecting another loss this year. I'm waiting to see how the students show up this year compared to how they left in the middle, or once, kids who had already been in our district had left. Our unduplicated pupil count is decreasing, and this is due to, a lot of it is redesignating our students, which is a good thing. However, it does decrease our unduplicated pupil count, which we have less revenue for supplemental, but overall it's a good thing that what we're doing. So our multi-year projections are on page 14. We have increased by our GAP funding is off of the latest School Services of California projections, and the COLA for next year is a 0.47 with a 2.13% for 17-18, and the GAP funding is at 49.08 and 45.3 respectively. So we have a lot of ins and outs because we're planning on having partially out of mandate money being spent over the next couple years, and we also have new incoming money in 16-17 in the governor's budget, and so we have to make sure that all the ins and outs gets ins and out in the next following years. So it's like, gosh, I wish he just put it on the LCFF and let us have it instead of these one-time funds, but it's the way it is. So the salaries and benefits have their 1.5% for the step and column, and they all have the increase in PERS and STIRS. All other expenditures are accounted for professional development and instructional materials and technology for both 15-16 and 16-17 using the one-time funds, as I mentioned before. And the decrease in the 17-18 is due to the equipment purchases using parcel tax and the use of one-time funds in 16-17, and the increase in LCAP funds. We also have the special ed on the restricted side going both ways too, with the ECAT team for the special preschool special ed. These are our other funds, and so if anyone has some questions.
Any questions, board? Comments? I think we're okay.
I want to publicly thank Meg for sticking and staying here tonight. She's been ill all day. And if you're not here tomorrow, we'll all understand.
No, I'll be here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And go ahead.
I'm looking at the last page, 14, you were just looking at, the bottom line of the total available reserves percentages. And then I go back out to page 1 139, and there's a total of available reserves by percent, but they're totally different. Am I looking at apples and oranges? And page 14 versus page 139.
Page 14,
The bottom line.
yeah, I see it. You're talking about the 9 million?
For the 5.7, 6.38, and 6.53. On page 14.
Right. So what happens with the multi-year SACS form is they don't pull out. I pulled out assigned, and I pulled out, on page 14, I pulled out the assigned and the 3%. So that's why it's different. The multi-year projections out of the SACS software does not do that. So I'm saying it's assigned, it's not available, whereas the multi-year projection on 139 says, yeah, it is.
Okay, because they're very different. It's sort of confusing.
I understand.
look at
I
those
was
two
looking
pages.
at that today. It doesn't, it will represent that differently next time.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Herron, just following up, you mean the 11 million versus the 8.4 million?
Well,
Or
8 million, I guess.
or even 8
Yeah,
million?
it goes from 11 million, then up to 18 million, then up to 17 million, where here it goes 7 million, 14, 12 million. So there's quite a
Right.
difference in those.
It is, it's the assignment and the 3% reserve. As far as I'm concerned, if we assign it, it's not available. Whereas on the multi-year projections, it doesn't do that. It puts it all in there as available. You understand what we assign things. If you look on,
Well, the page 14, it does have the 3%, it does have the Fund 17, as does page 139.
right, but I do not include them in the 9 million. You see what I mean? I exclude them out of the Excel.
Okay, yes, okay.
And one of my follow-up questions was, you call out this 5.6 million in the ed service plan, because that's the big difference when I looked at the first interim versus the second interim. And that money didn't just, I mean, the money was already somewhere in the budget, correct?
Well, the 5.6 on the components of ending fund balance, some of that money was planned to be spent. We took it out of the deferred maintenance of 1.2 and the irrevocable trust. That was going to be the plan. They need it for instructional materials, so it falls back into fund balance until next year when they start to spend that money. That's why it's in fund balance now.
Okay.
See, the one-time funds on plan to be developed in first interim is 4.5, then it falls to 5.6 in second interim.
When you take out the 1.2 million from deferred maintenance, first interim, we put in $1.5 million. Now, my understanding now that that was extra money that doesn't affect our deferred maintenance that we're doing on a normal basis every day.
That's correct.
So that was an extra.
That was additional.
That was additional. So it's not like we are taking something away from everyday activity and maintenance. We're doing what our plan called for.
We could, as I shared earlier, we can always, our facilities are very old.
Well, absolutely. I want to make sure we aren't taking something away that we didn't plan for.
No, we'll continue, under Meg's leadership, we have a pretty vibrant deferred maintenance plan that Mr. Hetjunk and his team will continue to implement.
Yeah, that was my major concern, is we haven't taken something away.
Nope.
Board, any other questions?
Oh,
Thank you.
several places in here, you mentioned we're going to have to make up over $2 million in cuts, maybe next year. Do you recall that?
Well, I believe you've seen a list of some of the cuts that are in here. So those are.
So on page 135, you say 2.248 million worth of cuts to be made in 16-17 fiscal year. Some of the cuts are to reduction in enrollment, and others are not filling positions that are currently occupied. And 200 and some thousand, I think, in service will not be continued for 16-17 year. Those are just all natural attrition, correct?
Those are.
Okay, so it's not like
We call them the easy cuts.
we're not slashing and burning.
No.
Ms. Idelson.
I'm just curious why on page 13, the unduplicated pupil count, why you have the percentage going down and then in 2017-18 going up to 53%. Page 13, the chart.
Thank you.
The last line.
Well, it's, I think I think if you look at it, all the numbers are exactly the same.
It looks like
So
a
the
typo.
formula's wrong. Something's wrong with the formula there because the numbers are exactly the same.
And why are they going down in 2015-16? I mean, or what's causing that as far as?
We're reclassifying students
Okay.
from English learner to
Fine.
fluent English proficient.
Okay, so the 53 should be a 50% or?
And it's a rolling average. It's a 3-year rolling average. But I like to tell you what it's supposed to be this year so that you can see that we're going down. If I had done the rolling average, it wouldn't look like that. It would be more like 52.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
Dr. Bott?
Yes.
You won't be here for the discussion a couple items from now on a new contract for the classified. And then, obviously, if I've read the Independent, we have maybe a possible solution with the teachers. In your opinion, based upon this information, are we on sound ground going through those agreements if they come to fruition?
I think what we will do is do whatever it takes to make that happen.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Parker.
But in order for us in out years to have a budget that satisfies the county and the state, we would need to be making budget cuts. It just seems, when I look at the ending fund balances this year and the next couple of years, it just seems so unaligned with the idea of having to make cuts in the near future. And so that's what's startling.
Well, also, what I didn't mention is that the 4% is not in the multi-year projections.
Yes, and
because this went to print before that was happening.
Yeah, and that, I understand that, but even so, it just looks so different that, yeah, okay.
As I've stated, there will be changes in both expenditures and in revenue. On both sides of the equation. That will occur from forces outside of our control, and then there will be those that you have direct control over. You have control over the fun stuff, the reductions. The state gets to tell us if we get more money or not.
Thank you.
Thank you, so
This needs to be approved.
Yes. Do we have a motion to approve positive certification of second interim financial report for fiscal year 2015-16?
So move.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Herron, second by Ms. Ellison. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much.
thank you.
That brings us back to item number 1, board action on student discipline, case number 2015-16-34.
In case 2015-16-34, I move to reject the stipulated agreement for an expulsion with enforcement suspended and ask that it come back to us as possibly or hopefully an agreement for an expulsion for one school year ending in January 2017.
I'll second it.
Motion by Ms. Parker, seconded by Ms. Idelson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now we move to item number 2, approval of tentative agreement, wages and evaluations with the California School Employees Association, and it's chapter number 37. Dr. Cash.
After some successful negotiations with our local California School Employees Association, we reached this tentative agreement. It's my understanding that the unit members voted on it today. I don't believe we have not received any information yet from them. Mr. Trina, have they tallied the vote?
They have tallied, but I was not available for them to tell us what that tally was.
Okay.
I think Meg had.
Oh, well.
Mike.
Well,
they did tally the votes, Dr. Cash, but I wasn't available for them to inform.
So are we able to approve this?
Yes, you are still.
Great. Board, any questions, comments?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the tentative agreement for wages and evaluations with the California School Employees Association, and it's chapter number 37.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Limon and seconded by Ms. Parker. All those in favor, please say aye. Yes.
Discussion?
Go ahead.
Discussion?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to point out that one aspect of this has the Me Too clause in it, second from the bottom, which actually means that this is a floor, and that if the SBTA has a higher net result, that in parity it goes to CSEA. So we really have no understanding at the moment as to what that paragraph means. And that's one of the reasons I asked Mr. Tay if she felt that we could do this, because that's, to me, I'm voting on a check that I don't know what the number is. So reluctantly, I will approve it when it comes to a vote, but I wanted to point out that we don't know what the effect of that statement is on these numbers, other than evidently it can be done.
Or can I just offer an alternative? We are voting on a check where we do know the price tag, and it may likely come in and be voided for a different check. I think that that's kind of how I see it. I mean, like this, we know what this is, but we also understand that this check may be voided and may come back and be a little bit different.
It will be voided and it will come back.
So we had a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That moves us to item number 3, notice to the Board of Education of recommendation not to reemploy certificated employees and approval of Resolution 2015-16-25.
Mr. Torina has this one.
So board members, Dr. Paz, due to the funding issues, the child development programs after school and preschool will be decreasing the number of days that they are open from 225 to 185 at 4 of their sites during the summer hours. The programs in the school and the after-school program that will be impacted are McKinley, Peabody, and for after-school McKinley and Peabody is currently an open position, and the teacher in the McKinley program has requested a reduction in time from the 225 to 185. In the preschool program, the early years classrooms will be reduced also from 225 to 185. One of the teachers has already submitted a request to have her time reduced from 225 to 185. And in the preschool program, there's a need to reduce 2.0 FTEs, as well as eliminate the Waterford teaching position, and thus a reduction of particular kind of services that particular program does. The superintendent recommends, and I recommend, that we have the reduction in particular kinds of services, specifically the reduction in the number of certificate employees in SB Unified School District. The employees affected by the layoff will be notified by March 15th. We do have a positive attrition, so the really reduction is only in the program closure of the Waterford program.
Board, any questions, comments? Do we have a motion for this item?
I'll make a motion to not to re-employ certified employees and approval of Resolution 2015/1625.
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Torina. That moves us to action agenda item number 5, submission and approval of the 2015-2016 Santa Barbara Unified School District's elementary safety plans for Franklin, Santa Barbara Charter, and Washington Elementary Schools.
I believe these are our final safety plans that Ms. Wageneck will be presenting.
Dr. Paz, the board, I present to you the final 3 safety plans. We have Franklin Elementary School, Santa Barbara Charter School, and Washington Elementary School for your review.
Board, any questions, comments on these? Mr. Herron.
I'll just comment specifically on Franklin and Washington. I think the sections in there where the principals can give their own feel to it, in those 2 schools in particular, was very, very good. In fact, at some point, I hope Franklin invites me, because when they're satisfied, we'll be able to eat off their floor. And I hope I'm there to participate. So can you pass that on to Casey for me?
That's a new one. I haven't heard that on the board.
Well, it's in her report. I want to prove I read it.
Ms. Limon.
And I actually just want to comment, I got a very nice email, and the parents that were here at our last meeting were so appreciative of the fact that we went one by one, or like not one by one, but section by section in the safety plan for McKinley School. And so I just wanted to share that feedback because it was a very nice email, and not everybody had seen those before. So I just wanted to thank you for, and I think someone suggested it here, because I got some good feedback about that.
Thank you. I think that points out the importance of, I can share that with the principals, that really taking the opportunity to go through this at parent meetings and so forth could be very beneficial. So,
Board, do we have a motion to approve the safety plans for Franklin, Santa Barbara Charter, and Washington Elementary Schools?
So moved. I'll second it.
Motion by Ms. Parker, seconded by Ms. Idelson. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That moves us to the conference agenda. Item number 1 is discussion of new course approval for Los Pueblos High School, Introduction to Cybersecurity 1/2.
Well, we have Mr. Bill Woodard, Assistant Principal, and Mr. Al Sankey. I'm assuming you're here, Al, because you plan to teach the class.
I think so.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Evening, Dr. Paz, the board, everybody. Very excited, as I was last time I was here, to talk about our really push under Dr. Girardi's insistence that we change our elective offering to be more A through G compliant. And so we added the fine woodworking class to our construction tech pathway. And then Al's going to talk about his class that's already A through G approved. I'm really excited about this offering because of what you see in the news every day with Apple and the federal government right now and the whole issue of security. DP has a fine tradition of our hacking team, which competes with the best colleges in the country. So I really am excited that we are offering more A through G approved electives in our CTE pathways, which is great. So Al's going to tell you a little bit about the class, but I wanted to set the stage for why we're doing this class.
Thanks, Bill. Just a little background. In 1998, we instituted a new program by means of Cisco Networking Academy to ramp up our education in the area of information technology and networking of computers. That program has been running continuously and will be wrapping up its 16th year this school year. And I'm very pleased to have been there to do this during this entire period of time. A lot of things have changed, as you all know, in the computer industry. We didn't have cell phones in 1998 that are anything like what we have today. Computer access was, again, nothing like it is today. Such words as routers and switches were very new. And there was something else that was raising its ugly head in the horizon, and that was this thing we called viruses, and the vehicles that are used to get these viruses where the bad guys want them. And a lot of us have been working diligently to combat this trend towards negative use of the computer systems and networks that we have available to us. So about 7 years ago, I implemented a plan to educate my students as part of their regular curriculum in computer technology and networking technology program to identify and understand what are the proper business ethics involved with operating computer networks, what are the laws regarding this, which have changed immensely in this period of time. Also, how can we best identify when we have a problem and how to counteract it. One of the first things I learned was that the best way to combat abuse of computer systems and things is to educate the people who are using them. In the cases that we point to, we look at companies that have employees and how these employees should be diligent in how they use their computers and networks and prevent accidental loss of data and accidental intrusion. The cybersecurity element began to build about 7 years ago as an introduction to the laws and business ethics, a discussion on social engineering and how people can manipulate and maneuver, and eventually we have added such things as cyberbullying and how to combat that, how to protect your own property as well as protecting the property of other people, and for the professionals, how to go out to a company and test their networks and their company IT systems to make sure that they're secure. We call this ethical hacking when we go out to a company and we run certain kinds of tests to see what the vulnerabilities of companies are. And this is the part which involves a lot of knowledge about networking and how the networks work and function. So it's grown to a point now where it definitely has earned its position as a course of its own, and will involve merging elements from several of the other courses in order to make a complete program out of it. And as was stated, it has been accepted as a Category G elective at UC, as are all the other classes that we're teaching there. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to address any of them.
Board, any questions? Ms. Parker.
This looks great, and I'm so excited for the students that this is coming forward as a class that's offered at one of our high schools. And I just have to say that it just seems like every few months there are new dramas around this issue, and of course we're deep in the middle of terrorist iPhones. So I just think this is incredibly timely to pull it together into its own separate class, and I hope that you get a good number of signups for it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ms. Idelson.
Will there be any encouragement to have any computer science before going into this, or is it all, you're planning to teach it all?
This particular course does require prerequisite studies in either basic information technology course or a basic networking course, both of which we have on campus. And it does fill out a full pathway from 9th grade through 12th grade leading into college courses.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, board? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can this matter be placed on the consent agenda at the next board meeting?
Yes.
Great. Thank you,
Thank
Bill.
you.
Thank you, Al.
That moves us to item 2 on the conference agenda, discussion of parent education program evaluation plan.
We have Dr. Moore, and we're very fortunate to have her in her presentation along with Dr. Guillermo Juan, our Director of Research and Evaluation.
Good evening, Dr. Paz, members of the board, Dr. Cash, cabinet, and guests. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with Dr. Guillermo Juan to share an update on our district's work around parent engagement. In the fall, Dr. Ramirez presented a draft of SBUSD's Framework for Family Engagement and outlined the expectations for family engagement and the action areas we would target. As part of this presentation, he shared our action plan for the year. The action plan identified 3 commitments. The first commitment was the introduction of our draft framework to stakeholder groups. We had our first meeting in June with our Cultural Proficiency Committee. In August, we met with district and site leaders. And then in September and October, I held my first meeting with principals to develop their plan for parent engagement. This was followed up with a second meeting in February and March, and we will be having a third meeting in May and June to do a final review. The second commitment focused on the development of a parent and family engagement committee. I'm very pleased to share with everyone that we've calendared 4 meetings, and I've met with our family and parent committee twice this year. During these meetings, we had the opportunity to review our framework, and parents were able to give input around activities and actions that they would like to see at their respective sites. The third point is our commitment to the development of an evaluation plan. Dr. Guillermo Juan and I have been collaborating throughout this year to create a draft evaluation plan for your review, and that is what we're here this evening to share with you. The purpose of the evaluation plan is to determine the alignment of the various activities and actions to the learning objectives for parents within our framework. So when we look at our framework, it identifies 6 parent learning objectives. These focus on family literacy, early childhood and adolescent development, accessing and navigating community and educational systems, shared leadership, meaningful homeschool partnerships, and college and career readiness. These are then further couched under actions and activities. These actions and activities have been divided into district-level programming, site-based actions and activities, and then partnerships that we've developed with external organizations to provide various programmings for our parents. At the district-level programming, we have workshops that are provided for families through the district departments and different offices. An example of this is our workshops that are offered through our special education department. My particular office is also supporting different programming at sites. And we also have the community of schools that offers parent education courses at different sites. The site-based activities focus on learning modules. That means that schools, within their own resources, leverage the human capital that they have at their sites to provide workshops and trainings based on parent needs. And then our external partners. These are relationships that we have built with organizations such as CADA, FSA, the Latino Family Literacy Project, UCSB, Padres Unidos, MALDEF, PIQE, and Just Communities in order to provide different programs to our families. Within our framework and within this evaluation plan, we will be focusing on the third area, which is our external partnerships. At this point, we will be reviewing our logic model.
Good evening, Dr. Paz, members of the board, Dr. Cash and Cabinet. This logic model we read from left to right, and so I will go over each box individually, but I just want to outline how we read it. So we identify resources or inputs, and with those resources, if we have those and we implement the activities that are listed in that box, we expect a number of different outputs. From those immediate outputs, we have identified short-term outcomes and then long-term impacts that we would expect through this component of parent engagement. So I will go through each of those briefly. So under resources inputs, we have our community partners, we have funding sources from the community of schools, and we have district and site funds, and we have human capital that comprises our district families and students, the teachers, counselors, staff, and site administration, district and site interpreters, and then the district staff in our capacities. Through that collaborative work, we are implementing a number of different parent education programs, and Dr. Mora has listed those partners, so I won't reread that section. And then through those activities, we expect a number of different outputs. So at the very basic level, we have a number of parents who are exposed to the parent education curriculums. And then the next set of outputs are really aligned to the learning objectives in our framework for family engagement, and those are also aligned to the action areas within the framework. So we are interested in just the basic numbers of parents who are learning about family literacy strategies, about child and adolescent development, about accessing and navigating community and educational systems, about shared leadership, developing meaningful homeschool partnerships, learning about college career readiness pathways, and then just an overarching connection to their children's school. So those would be the immediate outputs that we would look at through the activities that are being offered by our community partners and organizations. And then the short-term outcomes in alignment, again, to our framework would be the increase in the use or the application of the skills and the knowledge that they're gaining in these areas that are reflective of the learning objectives in the plan. And then finally, the long-term impacts are aligned to a lot of our LCAP metrics for student achievement. And that's really something that I know that Dr. Ramirez and Dr. Morta have emphasized in our framework in our district, is that the importance of family and parent engagement is really to support student learning. And so we've made that very explicit here in terms of the impact that we would expect, direct or indirect, through these partnerships and through the education. I think very key is what we have summarized at the bottom, is that parents and guardians are fully empowered as equal partners in children's education, and that's what really is driving our vision for the framework within our district. I will turn it back over to Dr. Morta to discuss further the research questions, or the guiding questions.
Thank you. So as part of the development of the evaluation plan, we really took the opportunity to sit down and think about what is it that we are looking for? What kind of information do we want to gain from engaging our families in this process? So the very first one is, how well does each program scope align to the district's goals for parent engagement? And that's really what the purpose of our evaluation plan is, to really see how are we meeting our goals. The second one really looks at cultural proficiency. And although our evaluation plan won't directly address this, we are looking at utilizing our culturally proficient rubric that has been developed as an overlay to see, are we truly being inclusive, and are the programs that we are providing our families and the partnerships that we are engaging in also modeling inclusiveness for all of our parents. We also want to take a look at how we're building on parents' assets. So are we building on their capabilities, and are their capacity to support student success? And then also thinking, are students doing better now in and out of school since their parents' participation? So we're currently working with with ETS to identify a way for us to be able to monitor and to code this information so that we can see how are students doing, and is there an influence based on parent participation in the various programs that we are offering. And lastly, I really want us to be able to talk about, are we maximizing our limited resources? Is this the best way to use them, or are there other innovative ways for us to explore? And then lastly, when we look at the next section, it's really thinking about our methods and our timeline. So how are we going to be achieving this? So we're going to be looking at doing a document analysis. Thank you. We're going to be doing a document analysis. So that will allow us to take a look at all of the parent engagement plans. And as I shared with you earlier, I've met with principals twice already to be able to review their parent engagement plans, give them feedback and suggestions. And we'll be meeting a third time to finalize everything. We're also going to be looking at parent education session outlines. So every one of our partners has provided us with an outline of the programs that are being offered so that we can see what alignment is in place. We'll also look at single plans for student achievement, and then we'll look at our budget. So how are we utilizing our fiscal resources, both financially and then human capital as well. So then after this document analysis, we've also worked at developing a program post-survey that we're going to be launching in this next month. What we've done initially is we've actually developed the survey. We've had a pilot with some parents to get feedback on the actual tool, made adjustments based on that feedback, and our next step is to translate it to have parents take it again for a final review before we launch it. So we really want to make sure that the questions are resonating with our families and they are clear to them. So then we also want to look at the possibility of developing follow-up focus groups. So this would require that we develop an interview protocol, and this is tentative. And we're in the process of developing those interview questions because the intent is to meet with our parents after the workshop has been over, after they've had time to process all the information, and then call them back 3 months and see, has this program influenced your behaviors and your actions? What has truly stayed with you after the event? So at this point, these are the different methods and the timelines that we're using, and we're really looking forward to being able to implement and get feedback from our parents in relationship to the services that we are currently providing through our external partners. Are there any questions?
Board questions, comments? Ms. Limon.
Thank you. This was helpful. So when you get the feedback, what happens with the feedback? I mean, will it depend on what the feedback says, or is there an intent to do some shifting with the programs and models that are currently being served?
The intent is to look at the information, tabulate it, and then be able to report back to you, the board, as to what's happening, and then develop a proposal as to what would be some possible next steps.
And how would you navigate that? I mean, I think in the past we've seen that there are times where parents feel very loyal to a particular subscribed program. And so how do you, and I actually anticipate we're going to see that this time around, but how are you thinking about what that would mean if something like that comes forward where it's, because I noticed that the 5 questions you asked are really more about kind of the district's thoughts about the program and how they align to certain outcomes. So, I mean, how do you reconcile that? How does that work?
So what we're looking at is to look to the questions that we've developed in our survey really focus on the learning goals for parents, on the learning objectives that we've identified. So based on that information, we're hoping to discern which of the programs are truly meeting those objectives, right? And we want to be able to share that information. It's going to be public, so that if the various partnerships that we have get this information and want to make adjustments, then that's great. They can continue to make adjustments, and then we can continue to partner. This information is going to be shared, and I'm going to develop a proposal, and the sites are still going to have the opportunity to partner based on their school needs and based on their family's needs.
And so under that situation, there is the possibility of we would still have all of these programs offered, but it just wouldn't be maybe the same programs at each school.
Could possibly be it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Parker.
Just a quick question. How many parents have been participating in this drafting process?
The drafting process of the plan?
In the committee work, I should say.
Okay, so we've had 2 meetings so far, and I have about 10 to 12 parents that participate in that.
Are they from a variety of schools?
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
I had a couple questions.
Of course.
Or comments. One, I kind of look at this, especially if you go back up to when, I know the focus is really looking at what parents get out of all of these parent engagement activities. But some of these really are dependent on the relationship, as you put, like in, for example, meaningful homeschool partnerships, shared leadership, accessing and navigating community and educational systems. I would maybe argue all of them. It depends on staff and their ability to do all of those pieces, and staff's ability to engage parents and have the training, the knowledge, the capacity to do all of these pieces. So in some ways, I would argue that evaluation shouldn't just look at the parents, but really in that process, especially when you look at your last questions around whether you're looking at, especially number 2, to what extent does each program model cultural proficiency and inclusiveness for all families, that's really more of a question of how well did you do the work. And that's a reflection of how you're implementing the program. And really, that's a reflection of staff. It's not about the parents, it's about staff. Because at the end of the day, when you're looking at some of these programs, it really does depend on the staff, whether it's our staff or whether it's a contracted staff, but it's staff. And so I would argue that you should look at expanding your evaluation and looking at that as a process, right? As that scope is not just on the parents, that focus, that lens really needs to be with a wider scope at looking at us in that process as well. Because at the end of the day, if you're just going to look at it from the perspective of parents, we may get a really good evaluation in terms of the parents, and they may all say it was great, but it could have been better. Or you may have some parents who say, well, we didn't really like this, but why? Well, it was this and this and this. So if your evaluation is only focused on this, which is the parents, you're not going to capture all these other pieces. And I would argue that your question number 2 should be reframed as in terms of how well did you do it. It's captured somewhat into the model of cultural proficiency and inclusiveness for all families, and as a reflection. And even when we look at, Just Communities Institute for Equity and Education, it's a little bit of that, but it's a little more than that. So I would ask you to kind of think about that in terms of the process too, to kind of look at how we're doing our work, meaning the staff in terms of all these programs, because that's a big question for me. Because if I just look at it from the parent perspective, some of them may find a lot of value, and some may not. And I will give you examples which I've used here at the board, that if you look at just parent engagement and really looking at parent engagement from the day-to-day activities rather than just a programmatic kind of view, it goes down to our parents greeted at the door in a respectful manner, right? Regardless of whether it's a parent just visiting the school or parent volunteering, someone from the community who happens to be a parent but not a parent in the school, it's that, as well. And that plays so large into whether they follow up, get engaged, continue to be engaged. And if the focus is just on the parents, you're not going to capture that piece.
Thank you for your comment. To just give you a little bit more information, we're looking, you're right, at a sliver, right? We are looking at the external partnerships. I think a long arc view would be how do then we extend it year after year and be able to build out. But I think at this moment in time, we're looking at just those external partnerships and then thinking, how do we then evaluate what is happening at the site level through the learning modules, right? What is happening at the district level with the programming that we are offering?
Yes. May I just also offer, thank you for that, pointing out something, and Dr. Mora and I have discussed that to a great extent. And so the second question, we can certainly we can modify how it's asked, but that is a process that I know that the Cultural Proficiency and Equity Committee is working on developing, and Dr. Moore and I are part of the subcommittee that is working on a rubric looking at parent engagement for our school, for our staff, and also, it could be used for staff of the external partners as well. And so that is something that she alluded to, that it's not entirely solidified, because we are still working through that committee to finalize the process of what that self-study would entail and what that would look like. But our intent is that that would overlay and intersect with this work at some point. We're just not certain as to the timeline of when that could happen. I think the other thing is that I would point out is that you are all you're well aware of. In the single plans, we have school connectedness information from students, teachers, and staff, and so that would be part of our review of the school single plan. And so we're hoping to get an initial layer of teacher information and teacher perspective through the school connectedness work that's being done through the climate surveys. But we'd be happy to, provide more or follow up on those points.
Okay.
Thank you.
Board, any other questions, comments? No? Thank you both.
Thank you very much, both of you.
That moves us to item number 3 on the conference agenda, discussion of expansion of elementary visual arts. Dr. Cash.
Dr. Ronzoni, Dr. Ramirez.
Good evening, Board. Good evening, Dr. Paz, Cabinet, community. I'm here with Dr. Ronzoni. We're going to be walking through a few details. I also want to acknowledge that Mr. Jeffrey Walker is here from our Executive Director of ICANN is here, and he'll be joining us in just a minute. But in order to try to set the stage, wanted to just mention that really tonight is exciting for us because we want to present on something that has come up in other times here in board meetings, in public comment, and as I've gotten to know the elementaries and the parents and community a whole lot better. It's an area of I also want to start by saying that we as a district have embraced the arts in a way that's incredibly unique, especially relative to where other parts of the state and other districts in the state might be. We have a unique opportunity in this community to have incredible partnerships, incredible opportunities for access to the arts, and both to be a part of them in the community, in the place where they may happen, but also to bring them into our schools in a very intentional and purposeful way. So our commitment tonight really is about extending and expanding that, and putting forth a means by which that can happen. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ronzoni, who's going to walk through what that expansion really will look like, and then we'll ask Mr. Walker to come up and really present as well in this new partnership that we're hopefully really building toward the future with. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Ronzoni.
Good evening, Dr. Paz and the Board of School Directors, Dr. Cash, staff, and community members. I'm very excited to be up here with this. As we all know, and as Mr. Hearn pointed out about his visit to the Santa Barbara Community Academy the other night, and I was there as well, ICANN has done an amazing job of building and keeping alive the visual arts in our elementary schools over the past 10 years. So with this co-investment proposal, we're visioning it as an expansion of our visual arts in our elementary schools, because you will see in the details of the co-investment agreement, it will expand to all of our schools. So a very brief history of ICANN and the visual arts. So in the past 10 years, they've made increasing investments in our visual arts program in our Santa Barbara elementary schools, beginning in 2005 in what was then Cesar Chavez and now Adelante Charter School, and 2006 Franklin, 2007 McKinley, and now currently this year serving in 7 of our Santa Barbara Unified School District elementary schools, also Adelante, but they have a separate agreement. They have provided in these schools a visual arts teacher, an art teacher, as well as an art assistant, and as you go to the ICANN shows this spring, you can see the quality of programming that they have been able to bring to these schools. Okay. The 10-year-old ICANN initiative has built a solid foundation, and I've been going around saying it's not, they just haven't seeded it. They have sunk deep roots into our elementary schools for the visual arts. And going forward, our partnership will continue to provide a high-quality visual arts program in now all 10 of our Santa Barbara Unified district elementary schools. So they will be adding Open Alternative, Washington, and Roosevelt. So we will have similar to the model, if you think about it, in terms of our music program. So just like we have a music teacher in each school, we'll have an art teacher in each elementary school as well. This co-investment includes a credentialed teacher in art in each of the schools, an alignment with the state and national core art standards, which is already what the ICANN program is built on. It will include ongoing professional development. ICANN has provided their staff over the years with a very solid professional development program, which I'm just beginning to learn more and more about. So we will include that and then fold that into our professional learning communities. And we're also going to maintain quality art supplies and materials. Part of the agreement will be that many of the things that ICANN has provided and is already at some of our sites will stay there, and we will agree that we will continue to buy good quality art supplies, because you want glue that sticks, and materials that work well for the students. This co-investment, the benefits to our district and to our students is that we're taking a very successful program and we're adapting it in pervasively throughout all of our schools. It will be a wonderful model and a continuation of a strong arts community partnership with our district, which is, you can find examples all throughout the state, actually the nation. It's a very big theme in the arts advocacy conversation that I have been a part of and been learning more about. And it's also going to allow us to start to integrate even more tightly the visual arts with our Common Core standards. Benefits to our students is, as I've said, the expansion of the visual arts starting next year, and then coupled with our very vibrant music education program, we will be reaching more than 4,500 students. We're expanding it to TK and K on a weekly basis throughout the school year. So we will, based on what I've been able to see so far in the state, one of the strongest elementary visual and performing arts programs that I've been able to find. It will also enable us to make sure that there's equity, access, and quality for our students at each of our schools. Next steps, I should have called this next steps, that as we move ahead through the spring of this year and through the summer and the beginning of next year, we'll build in a professional development plan for the visual arts, and it will be aligned with our strategic plan, our VAPA strategic plan, which is undergoing revisions as I get to know where those revisions need to be, and I get the feedback from our sites and our VAPA teachers and community and principals. So having said that, I can open it up to questions, and then we can have Mr. Walker. Do I have any, Dr. Ramirez, anything else? Did I miss anything? I do want to emphasize that the program is incredible. Not to borrow the same word, but it is really amazing to see what our students can produce and how that affects them throughout their day at school and their engagement. It very much follows with our LCAP goals of student engagement and parent engagement, as Mr. Hearn and I saw on last week at the Santa Barbara Community Academy, the number of parents interacting in the room as the kids explained their artwork and got excited about it and shared, each other's. The language and the conversation was amazing, and the young lady who was the art teacher at the Academy, Amber, even the room itself was set up like an art gallery, so the kids had the experience of having their work displayed as you would see in an art museum and an art gallery, so it was really exciting. Dr. Ramirez?
And if I could make one point, I did want to stress that what you see before you in the agreement into which we've arrived with ICANN is really a byproduct of months of collaboration, close dialogue that has involved principals, that has involved ICANN staff, and really coming to an understanding about what we as a district can do with a number of our limitations and opportunities, as well as how to take those best learnings from the experience that ICANN has brought to the district and to each one of those respective learning communities as a backdrop, as a really solid foundation, as Dr. Ronzoni mentioned, and a springboard to something that, to a model and a program that is viable for us as a district and is sustainable over the coming years. So our partnership is really intended to be multi-year, but we are looking at 16-17 as being year one, which we feel will be very successful and will continue to flourish in the coming years.
Board, any questions, comments? Mr. Herron.
Do you want to hear from Mr. Walker first?
Yes.
Just get his views on the transition? I would.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So good evening. Again, I'm Jeffrey Walker. I'm Executive Director of ICANN, the Incredible Children's Art Network, and a new active working partner with Santa Barbara Unified in finally ensuring that every child in every elementary school in this district has access to ongoing high-quality learning opportunities in the visual arts. That's every grade, every week. It's aspirational and exciting. And in the words of a current ICANN elementary art student, quote, "Best of all, what I like to do is a challenging project so that when I finish, I feel that I did my best work." That's what we're doing here together. But you know, it's interesting how things can get lost in translation, or in this case, in transition. Over the past few months, I have heard rumors that ICANN is terminating our relationship with the district. I've heard that there will be no more art classes for our children. I've even heard that ICANN is closing down shop altogether. Well, I'm here tonight to make it absolutely clear that nothing could be further from the truth. As one of our fifth graders put it, quote, "I am an artist because I am brave." Since our founding in 2005, ICANN has been committed to making change. It's here, right there in our vision statement, which says, through sustained learning opportunities that emphasize both artistic excellence and access, ICANN seeks to effect positive social change in the communities it serves. ICANN's singular, substantial, decade-long private investment in the public good has provided a powerful model of what's possible for our children. But it was never intended to be a permanent solution. We believe that the renewed public investment in arts education is social change. And we believe that the level of commitment that SBUSD is now making for the first time to co-invest with us is in fact a dramatic change. It's the kind of systemic change in public education that ICANN intends to catalyze and support into the future. As another of our ICANN students has said and observed, art is important because you learn by making things. Another observed, art is important because it is a time to refresh ourselves. So looking forward to this new co-investment venture, we share the district's demonstrated commitment to access and to equity. But we also want to gently remind the district that it all means little without a genuine and practical commitment to high quality instruction as well. Here's where big challenges still lie ahead. The district's vision to expand elementary art from 7 schools to all 10 is brilliant, and we support it. In the past, ICANN has committed full-time senior leadership to curriculum development and enrichment to ensure that there was a coordinated program that was more than the sum of its parts. How will the district sustain elementary art as a program and not just 10 disconnected campuses? We understand and accept that the district personnel constraints make it challenging to provide what ICANN has, a professional teaching team, one credentialed art teacher and one professional art assistant at each and every school to both instruct and to manage the hundreds of students flowing through the art room each week. Moving forward, the district has admirably committed to an increase in students, but with a 50% reduction in instructional staff at each school. ICANN stands ready to help sort out this challenge. An exceptional obstacle in maintaining the level of quality program that we know the district aspires to. These are but two examples of why ICANN has, in this new co-investment agreement with the district, committed not only to major funding, but to ongoing cooperation in resolving the challenges that surely lie ahead. To conclude, again, we can look to our students for guidance and for inspiration. One saying, quote, "I always enjoy art because we're always doing something different. Collages, self-portraits, chalk pastels. It would really be boring if we were always working on the same project. The last reason why I enjoy art is because we get to sketch out our ideas before we start. I like to have a full map inside my head before I go on an adventure. What other projects will we do throughout next year? I wonder." Thank you.
Thank you. Board questions, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Walker. As most of you know, ICANN has been special to me over all last 7 years. I think I've gone to almost every art show at every school every year. Missed a few here and there. So I'm a huge believer in ICANN as a program, and I am sad that program as such, basically is going away. I'm hopeful that what replaces it will be even better, more schools, more kids. What I like about it that may not be possible in a school district is that ICANN is an institution. I mean, you walk into any of the art shows, and it's got a similarity. It's an ICANN show. And as I understand it, the ICANN name is going away, as far as our program. And so the challenge I would like to see happen is that we come up with a new brand name that all the campuses can buy into, with the understanding that it is a separate program that everybody buys into, and everybody has some basic understanding of the quality and what goes with it. And it's not, as I think Mr. Walker just said, it's not 10 individual programs that every school does it their way, and there's no communication, there's no tie-in. I love the idea that I can go from school to school and basically see all the different mediums in art that there are. I mean, it's every year it's different. I mean, this year at Community Academy, the elephants, the 3D elephants were fantastic, and the robots out of scrap were unbelievable. The group projects, all of, you mentioned in the classroom, Mr. Franzoni, but all through the hallways. I mean, the hallways were art galleries. So kids, no matter where they went during the day, they saw art, which is unbelievable. So my hope is, and you mentioned the reduction of the assistants in each room. That's going to be an issue. We can't do it, but that's an issue. We're going to have incredible teachers to be able to handle that many children on a weekly basis to get it done. And I thank you very much. As I understand it, you're leaving all of the supplies. In fact, you're even stocking ahead for next year, so when the teachers come in next year, they've got their supplies, and it's quality. And to maintain that, it's our obligation to make sure we do. And I challenge you to, as you review these programs once a year, 2 times a year, that you hold Ms. Ronzoni's foot to the pedal and make sure that you see what you think ICANN has developed that continues. So I thank ICANN tremendously for all they've done, and we're going to go forward.
May I elaborate on that? Sure. Thank you, Mr. Herron. I wanted to elaborate on that last point around the other part of our contribution to the district's success moving forward. We've just conducted a full inventory at all of our sites, and approximately, for your information, every site will be gifted between $20,000 and $25,000 per site of assets. This is drying racks, kiln, tables and chairs, cabinets, and so on and so forth, in addition to the restocking of core supplies. So we're very pleased to make that contribution as well, which is nearly $200,000 in value. Yeah.
Ms. Parker.
I want to thank ICANN also, your work, Mr. Walker, and to the vision of Jim Kearns, because I really feel like arts were in an educational wilderness as we went through sort of the California state standards and this over-focus on just sort of reading, writing, and arithmetic. And it has laid a tremendous foundation for us. And so we are so lucky with what we've had and what we will have going forward. As Mr. Herron mentioned, I'm also concerned about some of the program cuts, essentially, that we're putting in place in order to expand it and keep it going. I want to be very careful. Dr. Ronzoni, your PowerPoint talks about equity, access, and quality. And one of the things that I could absolutely see as we're talking about reducing the art assistant position is that schools with outside funding can turn around and say, oh, we're not paying for the art teacher anymore. We will pay for there to be an instructional assistant to come in, and then we'll start to have this inequality again. So I want to be really careful about that as we move forward. And I also really want to point out, we have our fabulous artist and former art teacher, Mr. John Houchin, in the room, who well knows, both from the classroom and SBTA president, arts funding is always at risk, and you have a board and staff at this point who are extremely supportive, and we've shown that in everything that we've done. We will not always be here. The funds will not always be here, and so it is so important as we move forward. I've seen you, Mr. Walker, up here being careful to keep advocating. That's always going to be a need, I'm afraid, but it's just something that we always have to keep in mind 5 years, 10 years from now, that it's so important for our students, and our community has to step up regularly to make sure that whoever is sitting up here hears that.
Ms. Edelson.
I'm very pleased to hear that all the schools will be included, because I know that the 3 that were not formally a part of ICANN was very frustrating over the years for parents and staff to know all the great things that were happening at these schools and not be a part of that. So, and then I presume that there's space for the art room at those schools. Is that so? That Roosevelt, Washington, and the Academy have it?
Yes. So currently, OAS's situation is a little different because of the scope of the school, the size of the school. So we'll address that in much the same way that we're trying to address, or that we're addressing the music program, which would involve some kind of a partnership, perhaps with another school site. We haven't sorted out all of the details around that, but in terms of Washington and Roosevelt, those are programs that have fluctuated over the years in terms of their scope. There are classrooms dedicated for that purpose, but they've been provided, or the staffing and staffing allocation, or the funds for the staffing have been largely a venture with foundations or PTAs. So those are elements that would impact the certainty from year to year. So what we're trying to accomplish now is really have a more even-handed approach. Are there potential unintended consequences? Certainly. And our effort is to really deal with the core program and have our principals, site leaders engage in sound and clear decision-making with their foundations, with their external partners, because it's not only foundations, there are other external partners. And I think the great part about this co-investment model is that they will continue to be a partner, and that is very important for us as we build out and really understand and have a solid understanding as a district of the type of program that we can build. Now, we have also while we may be sacrificing some elements perhaps, or that's how it may be viewed, we also have some tremendous opportunities, including the same collaboration opportunities and PLC work that is happening with all of our other elementary teachers, which I think is a great advantage. And I can also speak to that relative to other districts that can't or haven't made those decisions as intentionally as we have in our district, and as you've allowed us to with your support. So the program will be different, and we will build it out. But the advantage that we have is that we have a partnership like ICANN to draw from, and also to continue to help support us as we enter into this new phase.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Limon.
Thank you. So I just want to say thank you. I was first exposed to ICANN not when I was on this board, but when I was on the board of Adelante. And what I've seen is not just ICANN expand in the numbers, but also it just set a bar and a standard for us in the district as far as how we think of what quality art education program is for our students. I am a little nervous about the transition, in all honesty. It makes me a little bit nervous, in part because I've also seen that through the 10 years, we've learned, like there were some things that didn't work and we figured it out and that now work really well. But I do remember those moments where they didn't always work. I think it is important that all of our students at all 10 elementary schools have access to quality art programs, but like Ms. Parker, I'm a little nervous also about what that part means. We've talked about co-investment here, and we have an idea of what that means, and I can quickly see that co-investment might mean other things to sites that can bring out outside resources, and I want to be very careful about that. I want that to be a district conversation, and I actually probably want that to also for the district to be ahead of that, and expect it, and to try to understand what that means for our schools. So if someone is able to say, gosh, well, for this year we can provide, think of 2018-19 when the supplies aren't there. And so how some schools maybe get extra supplies versus others, and what does that mean? So I would like for the district to kind of just do a little kind of future planning, because I don't think that's a possibility. I think it's a reality. I think we're going to see that in the future. And I think it's important to preserve the equity piece of it. We've had people come to our school board meetings to talk about that, and we've had people email us. So I hope that folks don't forget that that was kind of part of the core conversation when we are asking for equity in the future for all our sites. So thank you to ICANN, everyone involved, to the teachers, the instructors, Jim Kearns, Visionary, everybody involved. There's been a team of folks over the last 10 years involved, and so thank you for setting that bar for us and helping us understand too why it's important to preserve this for our students.
Just one more thing, Dr. Paz. A fun thing, last night at Adelante, the art teacher there made a very good comment. She said, I'm going to feel part of the staff now. And she said, that'll be a benefit to me and to the school, because sometimes I feel I'm not quite in step with the rest of the staff. So she was looking forward to being part of the staff, which I thought was a positive statement.
I just want to add that I think there are many benefits into taking this direction step, but I do worry the same sort of areas that my fellow board members worry about. And I also want to make sure that as we move this process forward, that we're conscious and taking an active role in communicating the changes. As has been pointed out, there have been a lot of rumors, and we want to make sure that the rumors just go away as rumors and they don't continue to sort of fester out there and continue to hold true in people's minds. So I would advocate to make sure that we clarify those pieces as we start rolling this out as quickly as possible, if we haven't started already doing it to an extent, either personally or through other means. So I would ask to do that as well.
And to speak to that point, I can tell you that, again, through our collaboration, we've established along the way that became a big topic for us to discuss and work through. And we established a timeline that talked to or considered both our internal and external stakeholders. So we do have a joint communique that's going to be going out to our broader community. We've communicated to our elementary leadership. ICANN has communicated to their staff about what those changes entail for them, because that's important to, and this is not something that just came up today. I mean, that's, again, months of planning, careful communication, and trying to ensure that the right information was making its way to the right people at the right time. And I really feel proud of that, because it sometimes meant holding back a little bit, even as certain rumors may have begun to arise. But we wanted to be very fair to those people that were the most impacted, and that needed to some time just to process and to understand what those changes might mean for them, ask the right questions. And ICANN has been tremendous about establishing those lines of communications with both Dr. Ronzoni and I. And I think we've tried to be as responsive to their needs, to their questions, as we've been. And we continue to, over the coming months, to be able to communicate that and really, again, really look at this as a real partnership.
Thank you. Board, any final comments, questions?
I have a final comment.
Yes, Dr. Gesh.
Thank you. ICANN could have done a whole host of things when they made the decision on changing the basic programming in our elementary schools. They could have done a lot of things. But they chose to continue to work with our kids, and I want to publicly acknowledge and thank them for that. And Jeffrey, for your tireless advocacy on behalf of the students in our community. I appreciate that. And I know that what's going to happen over the next year will set the framework for an unbelievably great art program for every child in our elementary schools. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for all the work that you've done up to this point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board, that takes us to item 4 in the conference agenda, first reading of Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 6152.1, placement in mathematics courses.
So anytime there's something about math, I always make sure Dr. Drotti answers those questions.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Paz. The purpose of this policy is to create a fair, objective, and transparent protocol that serves pupils who are transitioning from elementary to middle school and middle school to high school. Beginning the 2016-17 school year, the district will implement the requirements of the California Mathematics Placement Act of 2015 to accurately evaluate and place students in appropriate mathematics courses. The district will take into consideration the multiple objective academic measures of pupils' performance. You have had the opportunity to look at the BP and also AR 6152.1. There's a lot of information in there, and I think the best thing to do at this point is basically take any input from you before I bring back for the second reading.
Board, questions, comments? Ms. Parker.
Broadly on 6.1, the AR and the BP, and then more specifically on the AR, the BP looks like, is that just CSBA language, or have we made some changes to it? The reason I ask is because it says high school.
Yes.
And I think the law is around high school placement, correct?
Yes.
The AR, focuses on all of our, the whole span.
Yes.
And so I'm just not sure when I look at this, if, when I look at the AR, should we think about broadening the language a little bit on the BP?
Yes.
If we could do that.
The law focuses strictly on placement at the high school level in 9th grade, but we recognize that our placement of math actually starts from 6th to 7th.
Okay.
So,
so when we get to the BP,
yes.
I might have some suggested language. The AR, when I look at this, numbers 1 through 6, for pupils entering grade 7 and grade 9, I didn't see, or I'm not sure where it fits in, that, that end-of-year assessment that we've had for 6th graders for the past 2 or 3 years. Is that still in there somewhere? Does that fall under something, or is that going to be the first 3 weeks instead of?
Yeah, so so far right now, our intent is not to use all of the 6 points here. I wanted to bring this for the first time to you to look at what the state is expecting, and at the same time some of the things that we want to consider. Chances are we're probably going to consider about 4 of those, 4 of those items. But I'm still in the process of meeting with some math teachers to solidify exactly what we're going to use.
So it could be that current assessment continues to be used?
Yes.
Okay.
My guess is it will include that for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Because that's important for our component school districts.
Okay, so is this AR our language or CSBA language?
It's recommended CSBA language.
The CSBA recommended stuff about students entering grade 7. They recommend
yes, they did recommend that, yes.
Okay, so interesting. All right, well, I guess my only question is, do we need to tailor the AR a little bit to include something that would cover the results from a diagnostic assessment, that number 5?
Yes.
Because that diagnostic assessment, sometimes we give at the end of the previous year and not in the first few weeks of school. So I just don't know if we need to broaden the language a little bit on number 5.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is preliminary right now. I wanted to introduce it to you.
Yeah.
Hopefully to get some guidance from you before I go finalize the actual plans. At some point, I want to bring back to you the actual plans of how we will place students as expected by the state. Because this is supposed to be a public document,
right,
and transparent one. So I would have to bring back either an exhibit, or we actually stated in the AR exactly what we're doing.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Darty. Dr. Darty.
Thank you.
That moves us to conference agenda item number 5. Discussion of Administrative Regulation 3260, fees and charges, and Administrative Regulation 6145.6, international exchange.
So Ms. Idelson requested these items be placed on the agenda.
So I ended up hosting a student, and just by accident, basically, and it opened my eyes to many concerns, and I wanted to bring up some issues that I thought we should look at on our policies and our administrative regulations. Some of this was, from what I understood from Fran, was that there's been a tremendous increase in foreign international students within recent years, and how the district has handled this or hasn't really approached it since this has been happening. So I think we need to have some discussion about that, and then also involving how fees are handled, given some students come for a semester and some come for a year. And currently, my understanding is that they pay up front, and then money is not refunded if they are only staying a semester. With that, whether it's a hardship or a medical reason or something that does not allow them to stay. So there's several issues going on. So in the language, when I looked at what our AR says, 3260, number 17, it just talks about tuition for district school attendance by an out-of-state or out-of-country resident, and then refers to Ed Code 48050, basically talking about if it's a semester, adjustment should be made so that the student is paying for the services they receive. And so I would want to see that this AR be modified on the 17 to allow that if a student is here for one semester, they have paid for that. If for a reason that they maybe initially signed up for the year and have had to go back after one semester, that they receive that money back, refunded. And then there were things, I think, in the AR 6145.6 that, Fran, you mentioned, maybe some language changes that we could look at on admission. It talks about 1 year only, but maybe with a minimum of one semester.
So, yes, thank you. I have a number of changes that I'd like to bring forward, propose. They aren't major changes, but clarifications. We have, in the last, I believe it's 4 years, gone from 12 to 14 exchange students a year to currently we have 73. And so
that's district-wide.
That's district-wide.
Yeah, right.
So the scope of this has really grown, and because I think of this sheer number, we're seeing more of these issues come up. So I met with Ms. Idelson as well as several representatives from the high schools. And in fact, we just had a visit from our representative from Homeland Security yesterday, who it's great because Homeland Security is now providing support to the district, kind of like in terms of when we have questions that come up and so forth on visas, and they're providing that. But yes, I'd like to look more into the ed code that you talked about, bring forward a specific statement about being able to make that semester adjustment when, as you say, there's a hardship or that sort of thing that's of no fault of the student.
And I'd like that retroactive to 2015-16.
Okay.
This school year begin.
We also want to look in terms of AR 6145.6, looking at being more clear about our statement about diplomas. One thing that's come out is sometimes the exchange students come with the expectation of completing a diploma of ours, yet sometimes we don't have space in those courses, government, econ, because that hasn't been offered. Say in Argentina, they don't have U.S. government as a course. So we would never want our students displaced to make space for the international students. But one thing we are seeing also is that a lot of times it's that they want to go through the experience of graduating from high school, and so we wanted to be clearer on the AR about allowing exchange students to go through that process, get kind of an honorary diploma, as it says here in the AR, and just be clear on what that process is about.
Thank you.
Ms. Parker.
I'm just wondering if we also need to tie in AR 5111.2, the non-resident foreign students AR, just because there is that language in that AR that says a student shall be admitted for a maximum of 1 year. So there it's already kind of showing some flexibility in language that's inconsistent between our various ARs here. And I want to be sure that if Ed Code says that we can do it for a semester, that we're reflecting that in our language, and that it is more specific about that, and that we lay it out. I'm also, especially having heard the stories of Ms. Idelson's foreign exchange student, and hearing how the numbers have essentially exploded. I mean, obviously in the grand scale of things, it's a small number, but those students are becoming having more of an impact on our schools and our community. And I think that maybe whenever this comes back, we could have some background information on how these students are coming into our schools, how they're being served, who's in loco parentis for them. So I'm concerned in terms of who's taking care of their well-being. And also, I would suggest that you and Ms. Idelson get together on specific language. So, thank you.
I would likewise be curious, want to know more information, because, I read things in the going to the LA Times articles probably a month ago, where there are advertisements going on in countries around the world advertising, basically, here, come to us, we will provide you a home and you can get an education in the United States. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I hadn't heard that until I read something in the LA Times. And so I think that we definitely want to look at that if there are potential issues involved, or, I'm sure they've already started to occur. If they, if there are ways to avoid that, I think as a district we need to be ahead of it rather than behind it. That would be great.
If I could comment on that one, and I definitely will bring that forward. One thing that we've put in place policy-wise that's not required here, I don't think, is students who are just locating their own hosts through advertisements, and really not allowing those, but only specific vetted companies and so forth that we've used, and because, as Ms. Parker said, the in loco parentis, who's responsible?
Yes.
So definitely I'll bring that forward. That's a concern of mine as well.
Yeah, and
Ms. Simon.
I think we've all especially followed, some high-profile court cases this particular year around this issue, but I also want to be I just want to re-emphasize for the public, we are only talking about international exchange students and not, blanket at large other students. It's just for the international exchange students. And I'm curious if there's any policy implications for other policies that we haven't actually talked about related to student discipline and conduct that, as a fallout of what happened this year, well, it didn't happen this year, but the court case was this year, with international exchange students in Southern California. If we need to think about something differently that we do differently, that case was student-on-student issues, but that got really out of control, and so I don't know if there's things for us to think about, and would love to, if there are, would love those to come forward.
I think definitely that's another reason for only going through the vetted organizations, because they take responsibility for the students, and when there are issues related to discipline and criminal activity and the sort.
I have one question. Currently, I know there's a counselor at Santa Barbara High who coordinates the international students. Is that similar at San Marcos and Dos Pueblos also?
No, there's no one assigned at the other two schools. I think it's a good practice that counselor at Santa Barbara High has a particular interest in that and has a lot of experience, but I know that she is interested in having folks at the other schools as well and could provide training for that.
Especially because I know in the situation I stepped into, the student in crisis needed to find an adult to, advocate for them, and that was critical. And I'm sure similar situations are going on at other schools. So,
yeah, I agree. I definitely agree.
Okay, no other questions, board? Thank you. We moved on to item number 6 on the conference agenda, update on search for new superintendent. I just wanted to continue to update the public on the activities we're doing in the superintendent search. And so last week on Tuesday the 1st and Wednesday the 2nd, our search firm consultants, Ms. Ott and Dr. Castrita, met with a number of community members, staff, board members, to begin to develop a profile of the next superintendent that we would want in the district. And then on Tuesday night, both consultants also met with the number of people from the public. I believe that the meeting wasn't heavily attended. There was probably about 25 individuals that showed up. But that provided some opportunity for the public to provide some input to the superintendent on what that person should look like as well. And now the online survey, I think, when was it closing? Yesterday. So that provided a third opportunity to
And I know everybody in this room applied, right? Took the survey? I'm sure everybody here did, right? Okay.
I
Ms. Limon.
do want to say something about that because I heard back, there were, I just now am realizing that Sandra was not here today because I called her in the morning and now I'm like, oh, she wasn't here. But there were a group of parents that actually asked for hard copies. Because even the online Spanish one wasn't. It was last minute. I did a last minute push to kind of send out some emails over the weekend to make sure that people were responding, and I just want to acknowledge that we weren't able to get them hard copies of the survey, and I understand that those were supposed to be hard copies were supposed to be available at the in-person meeting on March 1st. So yeah, I just want to recognize and apologize to the group of parents that did not get hard copies because they weren't able to provide that. But I don't know if we can check with Mr. Castrita if it's too late. It might be too late to get it back at this point, but
I'll follow up with him tomorrow and ask. But I was going to mention too that if anyone that would like to provide some input, I am open to hearing from parents. I'm sure all of you would also as well be open to hearing from parents in terms of their thoughts if they either want to talk to you in person or via the phone or through email. I'm always open to that, so that's another possibility for parents to do that as well.
I would like to thank Mr. Rickman and his staff. They were able to put the link on every school's website, so that it was up on the individual school website for their participation, and he and his staff did that really quickly.
Thank you. I also want to mention that next week we will have a special board meeting here starting at 5 o'clock where our consultants will review the leadership profile that I was speaking about, finalize criteria for the superintendent search, and also present the community survey results. So I will follow up with Dr. Castrita tomorrow morning, see if there's any possibility we can get that group of parents to fill out a hard copy form and still include it in the process. Board, any questions, comments?
Just that Ms. Limon and I will be meeting very shortly to go over questions.
Great. Glad you guys are doing that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. If there's nothing else, and there's no other items to come back to, I'd like to see if we can...
Before
Dr.
you
Cash.
adjourn the meeting, just want to remind the board that next Tuesday is the joint meeting with Santa Barbara City College.
Correct.
At Santa Barbara City College at 4 p.m. And that tentatively scheduled is a joint meeting with the City of Santa Barbara City Council for April 15th. Now that's a lot of meetings you guys have scheduled. If you feel like you'd like to have that joint meeting with the City of Santa Barbara with the new superintendent, you might, I'm happy to try to facilitate that, but you've got your own set of meetings for the superintendent search in addition to these two joint meetings, in addition to your 2 monthly meetings. So,
yeah, there's a lot of meetings, folks.
I mean, we can reschedule both joint meetings with City College and the City of Santa Barbara to a time in which you're not also meeting on the superintendent search. They just have been scheduled as they have traditionally been scheduled, so it's your call.
Board.
There's really no urgency to meet with the city, so I see no problem in personally having that at some other time.
Neither do I, although City College I wouldn't want to postpone.
So not on City College, but yes on the City of Santa Barbara.
Got it. I'll make that happen.
Okay. Board, do we have a motion to adjourn our meeting? Thank you. All right, we're done.